Hey guys, it's Bree here from Blossom and Branch Farm, and today we're here in the drying barn. You can see I have a big cloud of yarrow hanging up above me drying out, and today I wanted to show you 3 of my favorite unique cutting flowers for drying. A lot of times we get stuck in the wintertime with I don't have any fresh flowers, but I want something unique, something beautiful for my table. This is where dried flowers come in really handy. So we grow a lot of things in the summer that actually I am growing intentionally for the winter season because I know that I want to have something for wreaths and fun things like that. And these are 3 of the most unique ones that we grow here at the farm that we always get compliments and comments on, and ones that dry really, really well. So let's pop over. We're going to talk a little bit about each of these 3, and then we're going to look at the plants in the field. The first one that we're going to talk about today is this beautiful Pearly Everlasting. Now, you may know that we grow a lot of natives here at the farm. We're trying to bring natives back to glamorize them, to show how beautiful North American native plants can be. And in doing that, we've started growing a lot of them here at the farm. Now, this is a bit of a double-edged sword because now that we're growing a lot of these native plants, I don't want to cut them because they're serving a really unique population here at the farm. We have a lot of specialist pollinators that can only use these plants for their nectar, unlike generalist bees like honeybees, which can use any nectar plant. Our specialist pollinators can only use specific ones. So as we've been growing a lot of these, I've actually cut back on harvesting them at all. This is difficult as a flower farmer, to leave things blooming in the field. Mentally, it's really hard for me. I have to just step back and remember that this is for the good of the ecosystem and it's for the good of my garden, because the more of these native plants I let bloom, the more beneficials I attract. We're going to start by looking at one of these that attracts a ton of beneficial insects. This is just year 2 of us growing this one. Let's go take a look at it in the field. Now, this is a different plant than the one that is most commonly grown in the cut flower industry here in North America, which is actually called Winged Everlasting. That one is from Asia. This one is from North America. This is a North American native. It's a wonderful host to lots of butterflies, American painted ladies, swallowtails, tons of beneficial insects, and it's beautiful. It's a great little ground cover, so it creeps the first year, and this is year 2, and you can see how much taller it's gotten in year 2. It is great for cutting and drying. Now, we leave most of this like we usually do for the beneficial insects, for the pollinators, but we do cut and dry some for great everlasting crafts. And I like the color because it dries nice and pure white. A lot of times when you dry white flowers, white yarrow, for example, it gets a little bit brownish as it dries. This one stays pretty pure white, so that's great. Now, this one does spread seeds. So if you don't want it to be dropping seed, you will want to deadhead this one. Otherwise, in the fall, it does poof into a little explosion of seeds that float on the wind, sort of like dandelions, and they do reseed. Now, ours actually didn't reseed that aggressively. It spreads a little bit underground, but it hasn't seemed too aggressive yet, but do keep an eye on it. So I would be careful if you're wanting to plant it in a raised bed because a lot of natives can be a little bit aggressive. So just keep an eye on it. Start with a small patch. Here's our blue echinops. This is number 2. We're going to be looking at this one as well. And you can see the incredible colors that come off of this plant. It makes these beautiful blues and really rich and intense hues. And it dries just like this, which is rare for a cut flower. Let's go check it out in the field. It is also called blue globe thistle, and it is an incredibly unique flower. This is actually the plant that we get asked the most questions on here at the farm because of a couple things. One is that it's blue. Blue is just a unique color in the dried flower world, and it holds that blue really, really well when it dries. So this is great because sometimes as we're drying flowers, they don't hold the color that well, but these ones happen to hold that color really well and is blue, which is unique. The other thing that's interesting about them is their shapes. They're this little spiky globe, and for some reason, they're also incredibly popular with ladybugs in particular. So even though this one is actually not a North American native, we find it is one of our biggest ladybug attractants. So the ladybugs love it. Very, very drought tolerant this one is. I have found that actually it much prefers to be in drier soil, and if it starts getting too wet, it starts to brown. So you can see some of these flowers here toward the back are starting to brown a little bit. That, in my opinion, is from too much water. We've had a really rainy spring and summer here, and I think some of them have gotten too wet. So drier soil for this echinops. Let's go look at the last one, which is our starflower. The last one we're going to be looking at today is scabiosa stellata. This is such a magical flower because it really turns from a flower that is not much to speak of. It starts out looking something like this, which is really nothing that exciting, and slowly it turns into this. This is actually the seed pod of the scabiosa stellata. It is a beautiful dried flower. It looks almost exactly like this when it dries, just slightly less green. It's wonderful for a lot of different things, from wreaths to boutonnieres to corsages. Let's go take a look at how this one grows in the field. Here we are next to our scabiosa, and you can see how it makes these little flowers first, and then it slowly transitions from this, and then it ends up looking like this. So if you've watched some of our previous videos, you know that we also grow the perennial scabiosas, and these are just a little bit different. Now, those perennial scabiosas will also make a really neat seed pod, just like this annual variety will, but it's not quite as big. So this variety makes specifically these really nice big seed pods. So the size of these ones are really large, and that makes them perfect for drying, for using in everlastings, and it's also just a really interesting plant to look at. I will also add that if you are going to save these seeds, you might want to leave them on the pod a little bit longer until they're dry and easily falling off the flower. That's when they're going to be the most viable for next year, but you don't want to leave them so long that they all fall off and drop on the ground on their own. You want them right at the border between when they're about to fall off and when they have fallen off. That's when you can pull them off the plant, bring them inside, and keep them somewhere cool and dry for the winter until it's time to start them in the spring. But we mostly grow these and we use them short. So what I do is I just cut each of these little side shoots because I mostly use these for dried crafts, or I use them for boutonnieres or corsages, things that don't really need that long of stems. So I just will cut each little side shoot off. So we'll end up with kind of shorties like this. Now, if you were planning to use it for a longer stem length, then you would need to sacrifice a lot of these side shoots to cut nice and deep into the plant. These are already naturally branching flowers. So you can see here's the main stem, and we have some long branches that just come right off even without pinching. So this is not one that I'd pinch personally. And even without that pinching, we do have a couple nice long stems here that come from the base. And then we also have some from the top here that are a little bit shorter. It gets about 2 feet tall, quite bushy. This is probably around 10 plants here. So it's really not all that many, but you do get quite a lot of seed heads out of that. Now, the last great thing about all of these plants is that they dry really easily. So they don't take a lot of special care. All we do is hang them upside down like we have our yarrow here. You're probably wondering, why haven't I talked about yarrow as one of my favorite cut flowers? Now, yarrow is a great dry cut flower. Don't get me wrong, it is a wonderful one. However, the variety that we grow, which is Firefly Peach, we also grow some pinks. They don't really dry quite as well as the straight yellow version of yarrow, which we actually don't have any of here at the farm. You can see as it dries, it loses a little bit of its color. Now, the longer we leave this one on the plant, it turns more yellow, and then it does dry fairly well. It does still look quite pretty. It just doesn't hold the vibrancy. So if you're looking for a cut flower that is going to dry and look very similar to what it did on the plant, the three we talked about are going to be great for you. If you don't mind it changing the color and the shape a little bit, then yarrow is a great one. Bear in mind that yarrow is also fairly messy. So the other three flowers that I mentioned as cut dried flowers tend to be less messy. Yarrow is going to drop a lot of blooms as you work with it after it's dried. But I do still love it. Obviously, I grow a lot of it and we dry a lot of it too. So don't rule out yarrow when we're looking at favorite cut flowers for drying. Now, when you are hanging upside down, I would recommend bunching into smaller bunches. So you may not want to bunch this many at a time, mostly because when we're using it, it makes it hard to use just a little bit and it can get quite messy. But also because it helps it dry more evenly and it doesn't risk molding if we break it up into smaller bunches and we tie it tightly, hang it upside down until it's dry. Once it's dry, you can move it into a dark, dry space until you're ready to use it. So If you leave this out somewhere that's exposed to the sun, it is going to bleach over time and get lighter and lighter, which isn't such a big deal with a white flower, but with the blue flower like our echinops, we want to keep that nice strong blue color, so put it somewhere dark so that it doesn't bleach out. I hope that today I inspired you to grow some more things in your cutting garden that are meant for drying. Look forward to seeing some more fall crafts with some of our dried flowers here as we roll into fall. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe. It means a lot to us here at the farm, and we'll be seeing you around here soon.